Happy hump day, members of the Altcoin Buzz army. So the cryptocurrency market right now is going through a little bit of a scare. I wouldn't call it a flash crash or whatnot, but here's the latest news. If you've not been following press releases that have been put out by the Federal Reserve, we're seeing Jerome Powell and the leadership of really those in control of the US dollar kind of coming out and, in my opinion, massaging the public sentiment and getting people used to the idea of inflation, suggesting that it's going to be around perhaps a little bit longer. The word transitory was used previously. I think transitory was kind of a euphemism, and some stronger language is starting to be used. We're here on CNBC.com. The Federal Reserve now forecasts at least 2 rate hikes by the end of 2023. And Jerome Powell, as I said, is somewhat, in my opinion, conditioning the public to accept inflation and the fact that it's going to be a little bit higher and is going to be around for a little bit longer than perhaps we've previously been led to believe. Has this translated well into the cryptocurrency space? Not really. We just happened to be up a little bit over the course of the last hour, but prices are down, market down a couple percentage points in these last 24 hours. Bitcoin and a lot of other altcoins are also down. We're not too concerned about that. Look, inflation and talks of interest rate hikes over the course of the next couple years. This is short term, maybe a little bit spooky for crypto and altcoins and all markets, by the way. I think this is the kind of thing that spooks all kinds of investors across the board. Long term, stick to your game plan, not financial advice, but it is good for Bitcoin and crypto and altcoins long term. It speaks, in my opinion, to the weakness of the USD and the strength of, as Paul Tudor Jones would say, a 2 + 2 = 4 mathematical argument, right? That doesn't change at the whim of politicians or leaders like Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell. So we're not going to spend too much more time on it than that. Again, check out CNBC.com. Lots of other outlets are talking about Powell's remarks and what the Federal Reserve is up to. I don't want to bore you guys with that. Again, we're thinking more long term. So we're going to be discussing some of the updates with regard to Bitcoin, why actually it's coming out as a terrific argument economically, yes, we know that, but environmentally against its competitors, i.e. the USD, as we talked about a moment ago. Some great reports have been summarized recently, courtesy of Bitcoin Magazine. We'll be talking about why Bitcoin is now just about irrefutably a better choice environmentally. If you're concerned about your carbon, your climate impact, Bitcoin is a better choice than just about any other means of exchange out there. We'll talk about that. We have a couple of updates courtesy of THETA network. They're in the news. Their mainnet is right around the corner. Polygon is also in the news, as is Chainlink. And then, of course, be sure to stick around to the end of this video. That's when we'll be giving away $50 worth of ETH. You guys know what to do. Like and subscribe to Altcoin Buzz News. All right, so on this hump day, markets took a little bit of a hit, but people are easily spooked in this space, and everything that we've been seeing out of Jerome Powell, out of the Federal Reserve, ultimately, in my opinion, is positive for Bitcoin, for cryptocurrency, for altcoins. We're not going to, again, pander to this too much. We're going to kind of zoom out a little bit and take a look at the bigger perspective, because at a macro level, there's some very, very positive arguments to be made about BTC and by extension, a lot of other cryptos, especially point of sale blockchain, point of sale. I had something on my mind, that acronym POS a moment ago with something else I was doing stood for point of sale, but we know that's proof of stake. Little Freudian slip there. Proof of stake. So even, the proof of work, the old school OGs like Bitcoin, even they are environmentally superior to a lot of their counterparts, to a lot of the competitors. That's saying nothing of the proof of stake blockchains out there, such as what will soon be Ethereum, at least. So check this out, documenting Bitcoin. The carbon footprint of BTC is only about 2% and shrinking compared to the size of the military industrial complex's CO2 carbon dioxide emissions. And this is a point that I've been making for quite some time. For all the critics of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, Elon Musk comes to mind, really at the forefront when this argumentation is discussed. Elon Musk says that Bitcoin is too dirty. It's powered by too many Chinese fuel plants to be accepted with a clear conscience by Tesla. I made this point singular weeks ago. I said, well, look, Mr. Musk, I mean, by that logic, you must also refuse payments in USD, aka the petrodollar, right? I have yet to see a comparison, a side-by-side comparison of, yes, okay, some of the criticisms that you can levy against Bitcoin, but I've yet to see that juxtaposed against the very real and the very quantifiable environmental impacts of the petrodollar. Jokingly, I said, look, you can criticize Bitcoin, okay, but you must also, as part of that conversation, be willing to criticize the petrodollar, which, by the way, if you're a leader in the Middle East somewhere, if you don't bow down on your knee and kiss the ring finger of the military-industrial complex, aka the US dollar, the petrodollar, the expense, the price that you pay, the cost is multi-generational warfare, right? You're subjugated by force to prop up this system that perpetuates the sale and the global infrastructure of oil. This old school energy system that, maybe we should graduate from ultimately, but that's what the US dollar represents. It's called the petrodollar for a reason. So this is a great write-up here. We're on bitcoinmagazine.com. And I really want to give due credit here to Haas McCook, the author of this piece here. Bitcoin emits less than 2% of the world's military-industrial complex carbon emissions. This is based not on this author's opinion. This is based on public and published research, which is showing us that Bitcoin mining produces a mere fraction of the carbon emissions coming from the world's military-industrial complex. Now, in this case, the author takes a look at a bunch of different countries, the UK, China, I believe, and some other ones. We're just actually going to kind of have a more myopic perspective here, keep it to the United States, and then just understand that the numbers are even bigger, but for the purposes of this examination, we'll consider just the United States. So first and foremost, if you want to fact check any of the material that I'm about to present or any of the material that is included in this piece, you can do so. As per the author, the information that's presented is sort of an aggregate presentation of these 4 particular pieces, some of which are research pieces, some of which are different quasi-academic publications. So take a look at that. All the information in full transparency is there. So as I mentioned, for the purposes of this discussion, the author considers the United States, Europe, and the UK, since they make up a rather dominant share, as it's put here, of the world's military industry and expenditure when it comes to global carbon dioxide emissions, CO2. Quote, I estimate that the carbon emissions of the world's armed forces and the industries that provide their equipment are in the region of 5% of the global total. But this does not include the carbon emissions of the impacts of war. This could be as high as 1% in and of itself. So the total military carbon bootprint could be 6%. And as you can see here, you not only have in terms of military spending by country, but you also have the degree to which that is either increased or decreased. The United States leading the world at just about $750 billion. That's up over 5%. China at $250 billion, a little over that. That's also up 5%. These are 2019 figures. At the time of writing, the Cambridge University Center for Alternative Finance estimates Bitcoin's energy use to be 97.9 terawatt hours, with total emissions of 44.1 million tons of carbon dioxide and carbon dioxide equivalents, so that's millions of tons of CO2 emissions, a measly approximate 0.09% of the world's 50,000 million tons of CO2 emissions, and over 55 to 65 times less than the MIC, than the military industrial complex. 55 to 65 times less. Remember that statistic next time somebody gets in your face about the environmental impact of cryptocurrency. Taking a look here at the chart, in terms of the scopes 1 and 2 items transparently reported by the United States Department of Energy, the carbon footprint of the US military was about 56.9 MTCO2e. I believe that's millions of tons of CO2 emissions, down from 59 MTCO2e in 2017. 20.7 MT CO2e stem from the so-called standard emissions of all the military's 560,000 buildings across 500 sites nationally and internationally. Then you have another 35.7 MT CO2e, which come from the fuel use of its 50,000 plus land vehicles and tanks, 13,000 plus aircraft, and almost 500 naval vessels. Another half megaton of biogenetic emissions were also produced. So Professor Netta Crawford is one of the minds behind some of these publications on which this article is based. She had the following to say, quote, "A complete accounting of the total emissions related to war and preparation for it would include the greenhouse gas emissions of military industry. Military industry directly employs about 14.7% of all people in the U.S. manufacturing sector." Wow, that's a lot. "Assuming that the relative size of direct employment in the domestic U.S. military industry is an indicator of the portion of the military industry in the U.S. industrial economy, the share of the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions from U.S.-based military industry is estimated to be about 15% of total U.S. industrial greenhouse gas emissions." Continuing, she says, "I'll go easy on the troops and we'll just call it 15%. This results in an additional 280 million tons of CO2 emissions, of which more than half is directly attributed to an active war effort, on top of the 56.9 MT CO2e covered under the scopes 1 and 2. This brings the total U.S. military emissions to 336.9 MT CO2e, almost 7 times Bitcoin's impact." And you also have another individual that factored very prominently into the research here. I should say that was responsible for much of the research here that's featured, Dr. Stuart Parkinson, who's the author of all the research papers that we highlighted earlier. He looked at the following 3 sections on the UK, the EU, and the rest of the world armies, respectively. His methodology is similar to Professor Crawford's, who studied the United States, but for the purposes of this video, I don't want to get into Dr. Parkinson's work. However, it should be noted that it's also included here in the article, so you can peruse this at your leisure. I'll include it in the description below. You also have figures and statistics for EU, that's Europe, for the UK, and for the rest of the world. In conclusion, the numbers speak for themselves, and Bitcoin in the grand scheme of things emits virtually nothing compared to the positive value it provides and compared to its legacy counterparts. While the legacy military-industrial complex runs around desperately changing all of its light bulbs to LEDs to slightly offset the emissions of their bomber fleets, Bitcoin miners and sovereign nations are literally piping into volcanoes, courtesy of Nayib Bukele of El Salvador for zero-emission mining. Many Bitcoin miners currently run on negative emissions energy by mining using waste-flared methane. For Satoshi's sake, geez, there are actual serious people alive today who believe it is possible to stop Bitcoin. I repeat, the El Salvadoran government is literally figuring out how to pipe into a volcano in order to produce 95 megawatts of lava-powered, clean and cheap energy to mine Bitcoin. This would account for just under 1% of all energy currently consumed by the network. So it's very easy to call something dirty energy. It's very easy to cast dispersions on an industry when people are relatively uninformed and people don't necessarily have a counter argument to discuss the impacts of other industries, i.e. the US dollar, the petrodollar, and the military-industrial complex. I'm kind of using them interchangeably for the purposes of this video and this article analysis, because we talk about the military-industrial complex. We talk about these industries and these military bodies that exist. But in the case of the United States, don't forget that that is synonymous with the dollar. This military might that the US flexes, right? And this, I suppose, stranglehold that they impose really on the rest of the world, or at least many other global nations, is the backbone of that US dollar. They are one and the same. They cannot be discussed separately. They are not all that distinct. In closing, the MIC, the military industrial complex, will never improve from an environmental point of view, let alone the social and economic disaster and ruin it brings in its wake. And that's certainly the more important point. Forget about the environmental impact. Wars result in the killing of millions of individuals and many citizens and civilians that are innocent altogether, unfortunately. Bitcoin plugs into the wall or a methane vent or even a volcano. That's it. Nobody has to die. I have little doubt that by 2025, 25% of Bitcoin's energy will come from stranded energy sources. And by the end of the decade, Bitcoin will have negative emissions due to the amount of methane emissions it will offset. This will not be because Bitcoin miners are environmentalists, but because it is the most profitable thing to do. Yes, thank you. I've been making that point for a while. In a free market that rewards renewable energy, that rewards responsible stewardship and environmentalism, we're moving to a point where I think it's 75% renewable right now, 80, 85, 90, 95, 95%. Hopefully one day 100% or more is the goal. It's realistic because this is a system, this is a market that incentivizes people to innovate in that direction. So once again, guys, a great article. Big shout out and kudos to Haas McCook. This was published on the 15th of June, so yesterday. I hope we see more and more of this kind of coverage, not only on bitcoinmagazine.com, but in all kinds of mainstream news sources. We have some related articles, actually, that I also would like to highlight here. Give full credit to bitcoinmagazine.com really for highlighting this kind of work. As you can see here, Bitcoin emits less than 5% of the legacy financial sector's carbon emissions. Pictured in the back there is the Federal Reserve in all its hypocrisy. So kind of tying back into the early messaging of the video here and Jerome Powell. You guys can check that out. You can also check out this piece here. This a little bit more on the petrodollar itself, which I was talking about, uncovering the hidden costs of the petrodollar. The world's reserve currency relies on oil, dictators, inequality, and the military-industrial complex, but a Bitcoin standard could change this. And finally here, also on bitcoinmagazine.com, as Bitcoin companies make the industry green, investors will see the light. Again, this is self-reinforcing. Some minimal regulation may be a good idea, although I hope we don't become overburdened with it, because the incentives, the motivation, the economic rails are in place such that people are gravitating towards these solutions, towards innovation, towards greener and more sustainable mining operations, because they understand that that's what's going to be rewarded, right? This is a system that rewards those innovators that are willing to make positive changes to the benefit of the environment. So I remain extremely, extremely optimistic. All right, that was perhaps a little bit heavy to kick things off. Let's just take a little bit of a levity break here. I posted this yesterday on the main channel, Altcoin Buzz. The point being that, look, the critics are never going to stop. The Bitcoin bashers are insatiable. They're going to be here forever. They're always going to find a new excuse. So nobody uses Bitcoin. Nobody uses Bitcoin except speculators. Oh, yeah, but none of the other countries use Bitcoin. Well, look, none of the other planets use Bitcoin. And then eventually that's going to change once we've colonized Mars, whether it's Dogecoin or Bitcoin. There's going to be some Bitcoin economy for sure on the other planets of this solar system when we get there. And then eventually beyond, who knows, hopefully. Like I said, I remain optimistic, as does Michael Saylor. By the way, of course, he's now tripling down on Bitcoin. Michael Saylor's Bitcoin barge keeps on growing. I think they're going to announce very soon that with these new 6.25% or so loans that they just took out that are due in 6 years, that they're 7 years, 6 years, something like that. I think they're very shortly about to announce that they're going to hit the 100,000 Bitcoin milestone in terms of their personal holdings. Actually, it's not their personal holdings. MicroStrategy has created a subsidiary called MicroStrategy to take care of the custodial component of their Bitcoin investment. And why not? Bitcoin, writes Bitcoin Archive, is on target to repeat a January-February move up. Price is matching the same pattern so far. Probably take a bit longer to play out. So ATH all-time high by mid or end of July. I don't know, possibly. Certainly not financial advice, but it is possible. Like I said, we took a hit today. as did the other markets. People are spooked when it comes to, subjects of Federal Reserve tapering, interest rates, inflation, but that's felt across the board. Long term, that plays to cryptocurrency's benefit. Make no doubt about it. Okay, we have a little bit of a departure now. Let's talk about some other assets, some altcoins in the space. Crypto slate here, $500 million asset manager joins the THETA network as an enterprise validator. This is great news for THETA and DHVC. Not only is this kind of just on its own a good development here, $500 million asset manager joins THETA network as enterprise validator. The venture fund became the 9th enterprise validator to join the THETA network, so that's good all around. We also have this in the context of what's happening very soon, which is the THETA 3.0 mainnet here. As a reminder, THETA mainnet 3.0 is just 15 days away. This from a couple of days ago, so it's actually now 13 days away. Scale testing is continuing with no issues at 30,000+ elite edge nodes and 150,000+ T-Fuel stakers. Aided by scaling improvements in the recent 2.4.0 update, the next evolution of decentralized data delivery is coming. I'm excited. Polygon is in the news as well, aka MATIC, ticker MATIC. To make living in Manhattan affordable, I didn't know that was possible, we are continuing phase 2 of DeFi Summer by matching CRV, that's Curve rewards, up to $6 million US in MATIC for the next 16 weeks from Polygon for Curve version 2. Curve Finance V2 brings deep liquidity to Ethereum and Bitcoin on Polygon, and we're thrilled to support it. Awesome. Kudos to Polygon and to Curve as well. And lastly, before we get to today's $50 worth of Ethereum giveaway, we have this brief update from Chainlink. Secure your spot. Registration is now open for our smart contract developer bootcamp. This workshop is ideal if you're just starting and want to learn the basics of smart contracts, Solidity, and how to use Chainlink to connect your DApp, your decentralized application, off-chain. To read more about that, you can check out blog.chain.link. All right, without any further ado, it is Wednesday, it is hump day. I feel like giving away some money. Let's take a look at yesterday's video here. We talked about the signs supporting a Bitcoin bull market, and with the exception of what we saw today out of Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, bit anomalous in my opinion, bit of not like a big black swan event or anything like that, but just kind of something somewhat unexpected. We got shaken out a little bit, I suppose. People are spooked for one reason or another. I don't feel that they ought to be spooked, but that's human nature, right? Human nature is what runs the markets. Anyways, as a reminder, guys, in order to be eligible for a $50 Ethereum prize, number 1, you have to like the video. Number 2, you have to subscribe to Altcoin Buzz News. And number 3, you have to comment with either ETH, that's ETH, or the word Ethereum. Comment with ETH or Ethereum. Like and subscribe. That's all you have to do. Let's share. Well, not share, but I click share it in order to get like 100%. I'm so OCD. I have to make sure that it's 100% the right URL. I don't even trust, myself to copy what's in the browser above. So I got to share in order to copy this right here. Okay, link copied to clipboard. Awesome. Then we go over to Raffle Dash, YouTube Random Comment Picker, which, by the way, weeds out any duplicate comments. So if you're commenting like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times or more, because you think you're smart enough and you think you can beat the system, you can't, because Raffle Dash screens out all your duplicate comments. So it's not worth your time. As long as you follow the rules and as long as you're not a previous winner, then you qualify to win. And the winner of today's Ethereum is Harris. What a name. Okay, let me try this. Harris Kokologianakis. How was that? ETH and ADA, Ethereum and ADA to the moon. Harris Kokologianakis, congratulations. You are indeed the winner. Harris, please go back to yesterday's video. So this one right here, find your comment, this comment right here, reply to your own comment with the Ethereum address to which you would like us to send you your $50 worth of Ether, your prize, right? Do that as soon as possible. You'll be part of the next batch. We typically send out the prize money about once a week, just logistically. It's easier that way. Harris, congratulations. It's that easy to win. You guys may as well all participate. And from the looks of it, many of you guys are. Taking a look at the comments from that last video, 502 comments. So keep it up. We're going to keep doing this for a little bit longer to help grow the channel. But that's about it for today, members of the Altcoin Buzz Army. Do be sure you're following us on all the regular social media channels. Keep checking back into our website, altcoinbuzz.io. Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell to receive notifications if you enjoyed today's video. None of this is financial advice, as you know. If you're bored, we have a couple of recent videos, maybe the last live stream, that are popping up right about now. Take care, everybody. Best of luck if you choose to invest. As always, we do hope to see you again soon in our next video. Take care.